This footage is gonna look so good. Dude, what is this crap? I thought this was way easier. What is up guys, Kanye here with a new video, and if you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm a content creator from Belgium, a tiny country that you probably don't know of. And I don't blame you for that, because this country is quite a joke. Did I really say that? I've been creating content for over the past 2 years, and I want to do this full time as quickly as possible. So you joining the channel and subscribing would mean the world to me. And before we go on, keep watching until the end of the video, because I'll be discussing which I think is easier, photography or videography. Alright, let's head right into it. So by now, you probably already know the exposure triangle for photo and videography. And you might think that they work the same for both, but that's actually not true. Because when taking photos, you can adjust your aperture, ISO, and shutter speed to dial in the amount of light that you want in your image. But with videos, that's not true. And there are some key rules that you gotta keep in mind, because otherwise you'll ruin your footage. You gotta make sure that your shutter speed is double the frame rate. So if you're shooting in 24p, you gotta make sure that your shutter speed is at 50 fps. If you're shooting at 50p, you gotta make sure that you're shooting at 100 fps, and so on. We actually do this to imitate the motion of our eyes, and this will also give us the most natural look. Another thing to keep in mind from your exposure triangle when shooting video is that whenever you're shooting in a log format, which is some kind of raw format, but then for video, is that you shoot in its base native ISO. For my Canon EOS R, that's 400 ISO, for example. And if I go below that, my image quality will be worse and break down way faster than when I keep my ISO at 400 or above. And this is quite different when you gotta expose for the highlights with your photos. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind, because I really struggled a lot with this. With your aperture, everything stays the same, so you don't need to worry about that. You gotta keep the file sizes in mind. Photos can already be quite hard on your PC, especially those new high-end cameras that produce 45 megapixel photos. Those are freaking heavy on your PC. But if you think about it, when you start to shoot video, especially some high-end production work, in which you can already shoot in RAW or 8K, and in some codecs that are really hard on your PC, like the H.265 codec, the Canon R5 or R6 uses, then you gotta be prepared to spend a lot of freaking money on hard drives, but also on SD cards. And not on these ones, but the very expensive ones. The ones that cost $400, $500, $600 for a stupid SD card. And that's not it. Prepare to also max out your credit card to get the latest new Apple MacBook Pro, because otherwise you probably won't be able to handle that kind of footage. So yeah, making high-end video productions will cost you a lot of money, but it'll also make you a lot of money. If you do photography, you probably already know Lightroom and Photoshop. But if you want to start editing videos, you gotta learn a new program. And there are 3 good options for that: Adobe Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro 10, and Davinci Resolve. And yeah, they cost some money too, of course. The most expensive one is Adobe Premiere Pro, which costs you $60 a month. But for that money, you get the whole Adobe suite. And the other alternatives are Davinci Resolve, which comes for free and you actually get a lot of features for free. But if you want the more advanced features, you gotta pay $300. And the last option, which I'm using right now, is Final Cut Pro 10, which also costs you $300. Lighting is important with photography, but it's even more important with videography. And that's because if your footage isn't exposed correctly and you're trying to fix it in post, then you have a high chance of ruining your footage. It's actually way harder to bring back video footage to the right exposure than photos. So you gotta make sure to shoot at the right time of day, or you guessed it right, spend some money again and buy some external lights, a decent ND filter, so you're ready for every kind of situation. As you saw in my little intro video, it's not easy to stabilize your footage. When taking photos, it's really easy. You just snap your pic and that's it. Your photo is frozen, it's stable, it doesn't move at all. But when shooting video, it's quite hard to have smooth footage, and you really need to practice on that. If you're shooting handheld and you want to stabilize your footage and you have a camera strap, you can actually hold it tight around your neck like this, and this will help you stabilize your footage. You can buy a camera body with in-body image stabilization, or you can buy a lens with image stabilization, or you could also buy a gimbal. So yeah, the choice is yours. For me, personally, I think that videography is harder than photography. Maybe it's because I started out as a photographer, but things are just different. And also, you're going to spend some more money on your camera gear, so keep that in mind. But even though videography may be harder and you gotta spend some more money on your gear, I would highly encourage every photographer out there to also do video, because it's just so much fun to also do video, and also just to have an extra skill in your assets with which you can help your clients. Or if you're already a videographer, start doing photos, because editing photos is so much fun. Creatives, that's it again for me today. So see ya in the next one. Peace! If you're shooting handheld and